Today, unsealed court documents allege Bill Clinton visited Epstein's orgy island. Dr. Fauci refuses to recommend limits on protests during a hearing. And Obama compares Trump's use of federal agents against the riots to George Wallace's segregation tactics. Happy Friday. We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by, oh boy, you're in for a real treat. We've got Stuber here and Pat Gray back on together.
Yeah.
Yay.
They've always called us a real treat. And I appreciate you doing it again.
The terrific twosome, does that work? I don't know what else to
duo.
do. Dynamic duo. Thank you. That's much better. That's much better. All right. So headlines of the day, the big news in the Twitter sphere, at least, is that finally these unsealed court documents dropped from the Ghislaine Maxwell case that's going on right now. Now, I didn't sift through all of them, but there are some verified sources who did sift through all of them. And here are some of the highlights that we have found so far. I want to get your thoughts on them, guys. So the Ghislaine Maxwell documents have been unsealed. Here are some of the experts, starting with allegations of a minor being trafficked to Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, and Alan Dershowitz. Now, Alan Dershowitz has been very, very, very adamant that he had nothing to do with this. I think he sued one of the accusers.
What's her face? Virginia Giuffre.
Thank you. And so he has been very adamant that he had nothing to do with this. But now we see from the court documents, at least, so it should come as no surprise if you've been following the story, if you've watched the documentary on Netflix, that he was accused of that. Apparently, having sexual relations with Jane Doe number 3 were Prince Andrew, Prince Duke of York, Miss Maxwell, Brunel, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Alan Dershowitz. Another part of the court documents was talking about the accuser having to go have sex with a French hotel. Did you say magnate? Magnate? Magnate?
Yeah.
Right?
That's fine with that.
And then another one, a former MIT scientist, Marvin Minsky. There's a picture of him if you're watching on video. That looks like a real treat.
Wow, that looks like a fun weekend right there.
He looks wild. He looks really wild. And more allegations against Alan Dershowitz. Not only did Dershowitz abuse the minor who is accusing him of this, but helped draft a non-prosecution agreement that gave himself immunity. So in the court documents, it says, in addition to being a participant in the abuse of Jane Doe number 3 and other minors, Dershowitz was an eyewitness to the sexual abuse of many other minors by Epstein and several of Epstein's co-conspirators. He would later play a significant role in negotiating the NPA non-prosecution agreement on Epstein's behalf. And then, of course, he did help negotiate an agreement that provided immunity from federal prosecution in that Southern District of Florida, not only to Epstein, but also to any, quote, potential co-conspirators of Epstein. So,
which is an unbelievable part of the story to me. We had Dershowitz on. He, as you point out, was very defensive, said he did not do it.
He's very angry when he gets accused.
And he says, I've got the documents that say I weren't there when they say I was there. I mean, he has a pretty extensive defense on it. What's interesting to me, though, is, here he did, of course, it's known that he did negotiate and work for Epstein in this case. And we asked him about it, and he said, look, it's my job to get the best possible, resolution for my client. And so I did. I'm a good lawyer. It was basically his argument. How it is possible, though, for someone to negotiate immunity for people that aren't even named. Like, he just said, basically anyone who's ever worked with me on this crime can't be charged. How is that possible? Like, that should not be something that can happen. It's one thing to say, okay, we got a tip from this person. They gave us information to convict person B, so we gave person A immunity. That's something we're all familiar with. This is basically like, okay, Jeffrey Epstein did something. Anyone who's ever had sex with minors that knew Jeffrey Epstein is now immune? Like, what?
And what would the motivation be to include all of these unnamed people.
Right. Well,
if you're the attorney.
The motivation would be, from Epstein's perspective, to protect all my powerful friends.
All of his friends.
Right? So Dershowitz, I mean, the accusation here obviously is Dershowitz is one of them, so he was highly motivated to make sure this was in there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But, it certainly seems like a lot of people who were very high-powered were there. Prince Andrew being kind of the biggest one. And when you watch you see the picture that he has with her, and you see the way he's acted in interviews. I mean, I wouldn't convict him right now without a trial, but yes, I would. That's kind of where I am on that one.
I would be surprised if Dershowitz turns out to be guilty, though, here, because he was so convincing. He was pretty convincing. He was really convincing. Of course, we've had guys who have been convincing before.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a
legendary defense attorney.
And we have the evidence of Bill Clinton from his last scandals with women, where he looked right in the camera. I did not have sex with that woman.
He said
not
he didn't
one
do it.
time.
Yeah,
and it was really convincing. And then, of course, oh yes, I did. Okay, yeah, I did.
That kind of sex.
Yeah.
Oh well, the semantics game over here.
It's weird when you make that kind of denial, when you know that you did it, and the truth has to come out at some point. It always surprises me when people are that adamant about it.
Yeah, it is. Let me bring up the Bill Clinton stuff since we brought Bill Clinton into it. So Bill Clinton was named in these court documents. Apparently, during a witness interview, they said, when you say you asked him, this is the interviewer, when you say you asked him, why is Bill Clinton here? Where was here? Virginia says, on the island. Where were you present with when were you present with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton on the island? Who else was there? She answered, Ghislaine, Emmy, and there were 2 young girls that I could identify. I never really knew them well anyway. It was just 2 girls from New York. But she said that they were all staying at Jeffrey Epstein's house on the island, including Bill Clinton, and that sexual orgies were a regular occurrence on the island. Gotta believe that this is not a good day for Bill Clinton.
No, I would agree with you on that. I mean, he's kind of once Hillary lost, he was useless to the left. Yeah. And so it's okay now to say he was involved in this. And you look at the timeline of it, and I hate to be a conspiracy theorist here, but you look at the timeline of all of this. For a decade or more, conservatives said, hey guys, what's really weird? This whole Jeffrey Epstein situation where he's molesting girls and Bill Clinton's on his plane. And you know who would listen to us? Nobody. Nobody cared. Nobody would listen to conservatives who kept bringing it up over and over and over again. It didn't get any attention until the Secretary of Labor in Trump's administration happened to be the same guy who negotiated that sweetheart deal, and Hillary had lost. Those 2 things happening, meaning we no longer have to protect Bill Clinton, and now we can attack Donald Trump in a roundabout sort of way. Eventually, Acosta did have to step down over this. Then all of a sudden, it became a focus. I don't know if that's really the reason, but it certainly is convenient for the left because they don't care about Bill Clinton anymore. They can't stand Hillary. Bill Clinton now is a Me Too violator. They're okay to say that because he's no longer important. This is an awful approach, right? These are people, legitimate victims, dozens of them who are underage in high school. I mean, their parents are sending them off to high school thinking they're hanging out with their friends, and they're going over this creep's house for all sorts of disgusting activities for hundreds of dollars at a pop, and then recruiting other friends. I mean, it's one of the grossest things you can possibly imagine. That being said, I would not put it past the left to utilize it as they do everything else.
Yeah. Pat, I did notice, at least as of the time of this taping, all of the court documents that had been sifted through, there weren't any accusations that I saw regarding Donald Trump, although the left does like to bring that up a lot. The pictures with Donald and Melania, with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
But there are the Bill Clinton accusations.
Yeah, and the pictures with Donald seem to be at Donald's places, right? Like Mar-a-Lago.
Yes. Which Jeffrey Epstein was later banned from.
Right, right. So, and everybody knows that. And so we've been kind of down that road. If Donald Trump was more involved in this, if he'd been to the island, this would be a much bigger deal with the media.
Oh, yes.
Oh, can you imagine what it would be like if this was Trump instead of Clinton?
One interesting thing about Donald Trump is he has an eye for shadiness. Like,
he does.
And I think he actually at times likes it, like with people like Michael Cohen and people, there's some of that he likes around him to kind of do things that are a little maybe on the shady side. But, you realize this going back to, I was watching the Dave Portnoy interview with the president and the guy from Barstool, and he brought up something that I had forgotten about, which was the Ali G show with Sacha Baron Cohen, who the fake rapper who went in there and started the interview. And the entire series, I think he was the only person in the series who figured it out, that he wasn't real, and got up and walked out of the interview like 2 minutes in.
Oh. Donald Trump?
Donald Trump was.
Really?
Yeah, he was like the only one.
I never saw that.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. I may be building the storyline a little bit in my head here, but it's consistent with the way Trump has acted over the years. That he would initially, another billionaire likes young women, meaning 22-year-olds, right?
Right.
And they're out he had a party.
Yeah.
Which is the craziest thing ever. Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and the Buffalo Bills cheerleaders were the only people present at the party.
But they weren't 14.
They weren't 14, right?
They were adult women.
Right.
Like nothing illegal. He may have liked hey, we're going to hang out with cheerleaders, great. Then started to sense some of the other weird stuff, and that's when he excommunicated him from his life. I would not be surprised to learn that that's actually how this thing went down. He has an eye for that stuff. And, it is you're right, if there was a tie to Donald Trump doing something wrong here, it's all anybody would be talking about. They're going to try to push the Bill Clinton stuff under the rug as much as they can, but at this point, he is expendable to them.
Yeah, they don't care.
They'll sacrifice
they care that much right now about him.
Well, you do. You both of you bring up a really interesting point. Pat, you just alluded to it earlier that Donald Trump, he's accused of, the Buffalo Bills cheerleaders and, all, like the tapes that we heard pre-2016 that, you grab them by the privates but all of these things at the end of the day, you still have the consent that's there, right? Like you have this whole Me Too movement who wants to impeach the guy over all of these accusations that really, when you look at them, they might be slimy, but they're not illegal. Now you have a guy who is being accused, I would say credibly. Can I say credibly accused?
It's seemingly more and more credible. Yeah, I think so.
Credibly accused of something way worse and illegal. You're talking about minors and nothing from the Me Too movement.
Right, which is
incredible.
It's amazing. I mean, when you can't even tell a woman that she looks nice in the office without being accused of sexual harassment. This seems a little more egregious than that, taking 15, 16, 17-year-olds to an island and having orgies with them. I think that's a little worse, and they don't seem to be on this at all.
And all these things with the left are real as far as they can use them, right? Black Lives Matter until it's Herman Cain.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You got to wear masks until we're not wearing masks. You can't gather in spaces unless it's a Black Lives Matter protest. All these exceptions are very consistent from them. When it benefits them, it doesn't matter. And so if this isn't going to hurt Republicans, what's the point of pursuing it? I mean, they might let Bill Clinton get thrown to the... I would not be surprised to see people Dershowitz, they'll do it now because Dershowitz is too close to Trump. He's become a Trump defender in the media. So now they're happy to throw him out. Look at the people. I mean, this is... Ellen DeGeneres was the queen of all of the media.
Then she did an unpardonable sin.
She sat with George W. Bush, and now all of a sudden she's the victim. She's the worst person of all time. Look at all these other people who Epstein's one of them. Everybody from Bill Cosby to Louis C.K. These people were all loved by the media. The second they started going down that little conservative road, it was like, okay, we remember all your crimes. Now, crimes are crimes, and they should be prosecuted, but they should have been prosecuted before. It shouldn't be because they've left the Democratic plantation for a couple of days. It's not right, but this is what they do, and they continually get away with it. Yeah.
All right. When we come back, more to come with Dr. Fauci being questioned by Jim Jordan in somewhat of a heated moment during coronavirus hearings. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Rough Greens. So we all have dogs that we all use Rough Greens for our dogs. I mean, huge difference, I would say, just in the fact that the dogs freaking love it.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I don't understand what is in it. Yeah. It's green, so if it was a child would run the opposite direction because they're like, oh, it's green, it must be a vegetable and good for me, I don't want it. But the dogs they're obsessed with it.
Yeah, it's true. And did you get the green beard effect at all?
Oh, yeah.
My dog gets the green beard sometimes,
Yeah.
so she just really dives the head.
She gets some on her because she's got the long snout
Okay.
as a Doberman, so she gets it on her snout sometimes. I feel bad for her.
That's true. I have a pug, so it's just mashed into his face, but it's still pretty cute. And he loves it. He'll just dive right in.
And yours is very old.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah,
16 now,
so it's really, really good. Rough Greens is, if you have an older dog, just to help improve their mobility, improve their, the longevity of their life, because our dogs are not with us as long as we would like for them to be. But what Rough Greens does and why it's so important if you're feeding your dog dry dog food is that it is bringing back all of the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, the probiotics, the omega oils that you're not getting from the dry dog food. Mostly because they kill it all whenever they give it that long shelf life. They've got to kill it and sterilize it in the factory, and there's nothing good left that's going to help your dog thrive. So Rough Greens will do that. You sprinkle it on top of the dog's food like we were talking about, and they put in all of the things that your dog is missing from their food. They are going to have a happier and healthier lifestyle, and they're going to love it. They will eat it right up. You can take the Rough Greens 14-day Jumpstart Challenge today. It is $14.95. You will see the difference in your dog in 14 days or less. If you want to see your dog thrive again, you can go to roughgreens.com/blaze. That is RUFF greens.com/blaze. Interesting moment today during a coronavirus committee hearing. Representative Jim Jordan was questioning Dr. Fauci, who is, of course, Stu Burguiere's long-lost father. And he was questioning him on the whether or not the virus could be spread during protests, during these large, gatherings, the Black Lives Matter protests that all of these states seem to be having, and was just trying to get more information on how much Dr. Fauci would say about the protest. Here's what happened.
Well, I'm not in a position to determine what the government can do in a forceful way.
Well, you make all kinds of recommendations. You make comments on dating, on baseball, and everything you can imagine. I'm just asking you just said that protests increase the spread. I'm just asking you, should we try to limit the protests?
No, I think I would leave that to people who have more of a position to do that. I can tell you.
Government stopping people from going to church, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
Last week in the Calvary Chapel case, 5 liberals on the Supreme Court said it was okay for Nevada to limit church services. Justice Gorsuch said it best. He said there's no world in which the Constitution permits Nevada to favor Caesar's Palace over Calvary Chapel. I'm just asking, is there a world where the Constitution says you can favor one First Amendment liberty, protesting, over another, practicing your faith?
I'm not favoring anybody over anybody. I'm just making a statement that's a broad statement that avoid crowds of any type, no matter where you are, because that leads to the acquisition and transmission. And I don't judge one crowd versus another crowd. When you're in a crowd, particularly if you're not wearing a mask, that induces the spread.
It's a simple question, doctor. Should we limit the protests? Government is obviously limiting people going to church. And look, there's been no violence that I can see at church. I haven't seen people during a church service go out and harm police officers or burn buildings. But we know that, for 63 days, 9 weeks, it's been happening in Portland.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one night in Chicago, 49 officers were injured. But no limit to protests. But boy, you can't go to church on Sunday.
Come on.
I don't know how many times I can answer that. I'm not going to opine on limiting anything. I'm just going to tell you.
You've opined on a lot of things, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, but I've never.
This is something that directly impacts the spread of the virus, and I'm asking your position on the protest.
Yeah, I'm not going to opine on limiting anything. I'm telling you what it is, the danger. And you can make your own conclusion about that. You should stay away from crowds, no matter where the crowds are.
Obviously, Jim Jordan's trying to get him in a gotcha moment.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to be a constitutional expert. However, I feel Jim Jordan's frustration because his points are valid, maybe directed to the wrong person. But Fauci does seem to have suggestions and guidance when it comes to a lot of things. Now, all of a sudden, it's very convenient for him to not say, yeah, we should probably stop protesting.
First of all, let my dad talk. Okay? He's trying to talk. Stop cutting my dad off.
Sorry for being disrespectful.
I will say he said everything there, though. He said able crowds in every situation. I don't know how much. He could have said, "Well, I believe the government should come." He's just.
Hasn't he
walk a line there,
certainly
but
said the government should shut? We should all shut down.
He has opined, as Jordan
Right?
said,
Yeah.
on many things, including NFL football, college football this fall. He has recommended, well, I don't see how we're going to be playing it. He has talked about sporting events many times and has recommended that maybe that wouldn't be a good idea.
Well, he got to sit in the crowd for a
And he
Nationals
did,
game.
a crowd of
And
three.
he threw
and
a
he didn't
amazing strike.
wear a mask
Hey,
a lot of times.
My dad's not an athlete.
No, he's not an athlete. But he hurt his arm.
He hurt his arm. That's
That's right.
threw
Too
out
much
his arm.
practice.
I'll say, like, yes, I mean, in my world, right, would I like him to say, you know what? Yes, the Black Lives Matter protests were wrong, right? I will certainly say that. However, he's totally out of step with the media there.
Yeah.
He is saying, avoid all crowds at all situations. Not avoid all crowds except for things that we like. Not avoid all crowds except for situations where we agree with the particular protest. If it aligns with my values, he's saying avoid them, and that should be his position. He probably the criticism is more on whether he should be recommending specifics on other things. That probably is where he should be. I mean, he should be get the hell away from people is probably his position. So again, I mean, he's my dad. I'm not going to criticize him, but I do think that got blown up as a thing. Where he was avoiding and he was trying to endorse the Black Lives Matter rallies. He wasn't doing that. And I'll say, I think Jim Jordan's really good. I think that he does a lot of good things. I like Jim Jordan, generally speaking. This format is agonizing. If you actually want to hear this guy talk, let him talk. Put him in a position where
Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time.
He's trying to get these points out there, and they're good points.
Yeah.
But he's just cutting him off and not letting him answer. The same thing happened to Barr the other day. It's ridiculous on both sides. That was much worse.
And that was, of course, what I was alluding to. But that was way worse.
Yeah, way worse.
I mean, Jim Jordan, I think, at least was trying to make a valid point.
I would have
just wanted
while
to
grandstanding, though.
Yes.
I will
Correct.
agree with
Thank you.
Stu a little bit on
Correct.
this. He was
Correct.
grandstanding there.
It would be nice to
because Fauci did answer it like 5 times.
Yeah. And it would be
Okay.
nice if you
5
just
times.
recognized it and said, look, I'm glad what you're saying, because you're saying that we should stay away from all crowds. That includes Black Lives Matter protests, right? Want to make sure I understand that. Instead, he's just trying to rattle off 65 points to get all of his talking points out there. I just don't think it's beneficial. These guys look at this because they want, and I'm not saying Jordan in particular. I think a lot of times they get excited and they have a million points and they just want to fire them all out. A lot of these guys just play this stuff up because it makes them celebrities. It makes them into, guys who can raise more money. It raises their profile. When I think the effectiveness here, like you could get an effective moment out of Anthony Fauci there in essentially getting him to admit this and talk about in detail why it's wrong to be in a protest. Instead, it's like more about them. And I think, that happens on all sides of this.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? We covered this on the show yesterday of Dr. Fauci, to bring up your relative again. Dr. Fauci now, I guess, sort of suggesting if you really, really want to be like ultimately protected, you should probably wear eye goggles or an eye shield.
Well, I know it's crazy. No one's going to do it. Obviously, they can't even get them to wear masks, so they're not going to wear goggles.
I kind of want to wear the goggles just to prove a point of how ridiculous it is.
I think you should wear them on the show.
I almost did go to the grocery store in these ridiculous goggles.
Can you just leave on sunglasses? Can you do that? I don't know.
No.
Those aren't
They
adequate.
have to be enclosed.
Got to be the mask, goggles, face shield,
Yeah.
curtain. And then you have like a curtain. You put a big curtain hat on, and the curtain is
with a circular rod, and you can
Like a shower curtain type of thing, where it's just like,
where it's right in front of you like
get
this.
one of those clear
Doesn't have
shower
to go
curtains.
all the way around to the back, but it has to cover your front and your sides.
Well, you could get through the hair follicles though in the back.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
You gotta,
That's true. So maybe you should
gotta protect yourself,
enclose
Pat.
it
Come on.
completely in the circle there.
What you're doing is irresponsible and it's killed people. In the last 30 seconds, you have murdered people because you said you
You're
could
right,
leave your
because
hair
I said
follicles.
leave it in the back.
You said
and that
you
was
don't even
wrong.
care.
That
You
was
don't
wrong
even
of me.
care.
No,
You
I do.
killed
I
Grandpa.
care. I take it back.
But in all seriousness, I think, Pat, you would agree that Stu is like the most pro state-sponsored doctor advice at the table.
That's a great way of phrasing it.
It is state-sponsored
Right?
doctor
State-sponsored
advice.
doctor
I like
advice
that.
at the table.
I'm going to use that.
So what say you, Stu Burgier?
So the research that he's talking about, I think, and I haven't seen, he was holding up a report at one point when he was talking about it. I think I'm talking about the same report. Was they talk about fomites, right, which are like little tiny particles that stay in the air longer than the initial droplets. So we know at least we think, most of the virus is spread by the larger droplets.
And they shoot directly into your eyes.
Shoot directly in your eyes. Yeah. Now, It's unlikely, right? Like that a huge droplet's coming across the room and landing in your eyes. It's possible, but you don't breathe through your eyes, so you wouldn't suck it in, right?
Right.
The thought being that if they're this small, and they talk about, when they talk about, like, for example, measles is much more contagious than coronavirus. It's really, really, really bad. Stays in the air for a long time. It can be hours and days. If that's true, and they think there's more evidence that it does happen, although it might not be the main way that it's passed. If that's true, it can enter your eyes. It can happen with measles that way. It's really gross, first of all, and I think I can't think about it, or I get really grossed out.
You bring up measles because you hate Germans? Is that why? The German measles. Do you hate? Why are you so racist?
Well, I hate white Germans.
White Germans. Okay.
It's okay to hate white
well,
Germans,
that's
right?
okay then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hate white Germans. I mean, look, no one's going to do this. I think like they do recommend this, however, for hospitals, right? If you're working in a hospital, they do actually, and they've been doing this for a while because there's so much virus potentially there. You really should protect yourself. I mean, walking around, look, we may all, who knows what's going to happen? You can only do so much, So
you're drawing the line at masks.
sometimes I'm not wearing a mask right now, for example. I don't always even wear masks.
Or goggles.
But I don't think.
Or the curtain rod.
But I will say, if I saw some, real legitimate, scientific evidence and it was compelling, would I wear goggles? I probably would wear goggles. I'd look like an idiot, but I really don't want to get, I really rather not get coronavirus. That being said, I don't think that's where we are right now.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute.
I'd rather not as well.
If you're wearing a cup, you have to wear a cup to make sure you're. A cup? Yeah, you got to wear a cup.
The late Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis was laid to rest yesterday, but of course his service was able to be held, which I find remarkable since the average person cannot have a funeral service for their grandmother, for their mothers, for anyone who has died who's close to them. They're not allowed to have anything. But now if you're in Congress, if you are a member of the elite, you can have these giant funerals whenever you'd like. So former President Barack Obama, of course, made some pointedly political remarks during his eulogy. Here is a little bit of what he had to say.
He knew from his own life that progress is fragile, that we have to be vigilant against the darker currents of this country's history, of our own history, with their whirlpools of violence and hatred and despair that can always rise again.
From Democrats, almost exclusively.
Bull Connor may be gone, but today we witness with our own eyes police officers kneeling on the necks
How many necks?
of Black Americans.
All Black Americans?
Yeah.
They're all on the necks.
George Wallace may be gone,
41 million. 40 million. Yeah. All of
but
them.
we can witness our federal government sending agents to use tear gas and batons against peaceful demonstrators.
Oh, yeah, that's what they are, peaceful demonstrators. That's a good point. We should clap for that. Let's all sit next to each other here for a second.
That is unreal.
Unbelievable. I forgot how irritating he is.
Thank you.
I had forgotten.
Yeah.
I had forgotten.
And then all of a sudden he starts talking. And you realize I dislike this guy with all the intensity of a trillion white hot burning suns. And then it all comes flooding back. Yeah.
It all comes back.
It was interesting how fast that happened. It's like, and he's had some speeches where he hasn't been outwardly all that political. Yet at a funeral in a church, it's time to unload it right there. That's the time to get all political on us. It's obviously disgraceful. I don't know what else you could say about it. Every single person who says it when they're in politics and talks about this overwhelming amount of people who are murdered by police officers all know it's a lie. All of them know it, and they just keep saying it anyway because they just don't seem to care. Peaceful protesters, we're talking about, there have been far more people murdered in these protests than when we're talking about unarmed black people killed in the last year. Let alone, in the one incident that supposedly caused all this.
And the way they talk about it, you'd think it was 900 or 9,000 9,000 unarmed blacks in the last year. Not 9, just 9 people. And that's 9 too many, but...
it's not even 9 too many. Some of them were blatantly guilty.
Some of them.
That's
Yeah, I mean, maybe it might have been 4 or 5 out of that 9.
And it was 18 white people, unarmed white people. Now, how many of them were justified? I don't know. Maybe all of them were justified in some way. I don't know, but it's despicable that they keep doing this. It is the Nazi line, and I'm going to say it because it's true. The bigger the lie, the easier it is to get people to believe it when you just keep repeating it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what they do, and it's despicable.
Well, the U.S. Attorney Billy Williams, who is the chief federal law enforcement official in Oregon, would tend to agree with you guys. He said just recently that the media should be held accountable for not calling the Portland riots what they are, which is criminal violence. Here's a little bit of Mr. Williams.
Well, it's pretty disgusting, and unfortunately happening every night. This is just mindless violence, and
Michael, where are you?
you know,
Michael?
anyone who defends the violence is enabling this to continue. So that's unfortunate, but it's you know, it's a mess.
See, it's weird because the people who are actually on the ground, who are in these cities, keep telling us that it's pretty violent, but the people in Washington, D.C. are telling us nothing to see here. I wonder which one we should believe.
He seemed completely defeated, didn't he?
He
It's
did.
like, I don't know, and I guess everyone's just gonna kill us every night. Yeah, you're totally right. We should be listening to the people on the ground, and the people on the ground overwhelmingly are very frustrated by this. I mean, we saw that in Seattle as well with the whole Chaz nonsense. We've seen it with the Seattle police chief, who's like, "I'm sorry, I'm trying to help you, but they won't let me help you."
Yeah.
It's awful. Look, it feels very 1984 right now, where like we're looking at this, like you can watch dozens of videos every night of these people throwing things at police officers, lighting fires, assaulting people randomly in the streets. And then every day you wake up and the news tells you it didn't happen. And every day you can watch the video of it happening. And then the news comes back again and tells you it's not happening and they're peaceful. Like it is 1984. It really feels that way because this is not, you can even see the aftermath. This stuff's still on the ground. The fiery, the burnt up part of the board on the window is still there. It didn't just, it's not a magnifying glass from the sun. People set that on fire.
Pat, I know you're pretty big in social media.
Oh,
so
Mr. Twitter is
yes,
what they call
Mr. Twitter. But really, I mean, it's times like these that you're like, thank God for social media for showing us these videos. Because can you imagine if we didn't have Twitter, if we didn't have Facebook, if we didn't have these alternate ways of getting this information, we certainly wouldn't be hearing it on the 6 o'clock news.
You'd just be believing the lies, right? You'd have no alternative. It's interesting because as they're interviewing this poor guy who feels defeated, you can see the evidence of the chaos with the graffiti all over. That's vandalism right there. That's not okay. I mean, just that part is not okay. When did it become okay to graffiti any building you please? Whether it's a federal courthouse or it's a city building or it's somebody's business or it's somebody's house, and they just feel free to do it. And they keep doing this over and over and over. Then you got the violence on top of it. I don't know where this ends.
I feel like once you break the law, probably you can't call it peaceful.
Yeah.
That's probably a good barometer. You don't think?
And especially when you break the law violently, right? Like you're actually assaulting people.
Right.
You really can't call it nonviolent. But they just say, that's why they say mostly violent. I mean, I think it was Ben Shapiro who said O.J. Simpson was mostly violent that day. Or mostly nonviolent that day.
Yeah.
It was just a couple times with a couple different people where he broke that rule. I guess that's true. I mean, probably 23 and a half hours. He was totally fine that day. It is it's a standard that they like because it allows them to justify basically any activity. Because mostly peaceful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. And no one's saying that every single person who shows up for a rally/riot in Portland is doing anything terrible. I talked to somebody last week who was there. He was there when the Portland mayor came out and did that whole show which he said the mayor absolutely saw the violence going on. He was right there. He was just a few yards away from the guy. But he said it's the same thing every night. It's choreographed. A bunch of people come out and they do actually have a nice, peaceful protest.
Yeah, till about midnight.
Till about, he said 10:30, but whatever. It's right around 10:30 to midnight, and then the violence starts. And so it gives them this idea. Everyone, the news gets all their footage of the peaceful protest with the cops evilly standing there, and then it turns into the riots, and then they just don't air that footage. I mean, it's disgraceful.
It's amazing.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute with more.
Like that Obama clip, you're just like, just let him go. You didn't even set us up with a question.
Switching to 2020 for just a few minutes, Joe Biden, he is like Mr. Technology. I mean, we talk about Pat being like Mr. Twitter. This guy is light years ahead of all of us when it comes to technology. Here is a little bit of Joe Biden at his most recent, I don't know what you would call, I guess, virtual town hall event on Zoom. And I guess none of his staffers like alerted him to how Zoom works or like how internet calls work and that there's a delay sometimes. Watch.
Mr. Vice President, as you know, the AFT represent teachers, paraprofessionals.
Priscilla, the Vice President, can you hear the Vice President? He just said hi.
Hi,
I don't
how
think
are
you
you?
can hear me, but that's okay.
He just did.
How are you? Where are you speaking to me from? Where are you now?
Oh, God.
I am at
Where
home.
are you now speaking to me? Where? Where's home?
Say it louder, Joe, so she can hear you.
In Brooklyn, New York.
Never mind.
Yeah, Brooklyn, she said.
All right, that's okay.
This is
Capital of the world.
Oh,
exactly.
my God.
This is now that I'm national president, I can't say Brooklyn's the capital of the world anymore, but we do love New York. I think what happens is the timing of the Zoom sometimes gets, there's a little lag. Okay, Priscilla, go.
I'll be quiet.
Okay,
and hear the
Mr. Vice
question.
This is an SNL skit,
Yes.
but real life.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of is every interview Glenn Beck has done for the past.
I was thinking the same.
Okay, no, you go. No, you go.
Oh, God. That is giving me, it gives me heart palpitations watching.
I didn't mean to trigger your
No, it really
PTSD.
does. It's tough because, this is happening with everybody. I mean, it's Joe. This is what people don't get. To Joe Biden, that sounded fine. Right? It sounded perfect. He talked at all the right times. When you have a delay, Glenn, it doesn't work like that. You have to wait. You have to be deliberate. You can't jump in. You can't joke. You have to ask a question and then wait. Every single person, and you've had people on here with the Skype a couple times, and it's like
It's painful.
It's hard.
It's painful to sit there and wait.
It's not conversational, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we're doing here where we're just you're like trading words. It's like you ask a question and then you stop, and then you wait through the long silence.
It feels much longer than it is.
Feels awful.
Yeah.
And then they talk and then they stop and then you go. It's like it's just something I think most people who watch TV right now understand that it's just going to suck for a while until people get back in studios. Right. But Joe is a particularly bad example right there.
Pat, I liked how he repeated himself slower and louder, like, you must not understand English, Priscilla. Where are you now?
It's priceless. And, he's, 77? So he's got an excuse for not being able to understand the delay. Some people don't.
Well, but
people don't have that.
Okay, but how long does he
Is he 77 yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, he's not.
How long does he get to use that excuse, though? Because I feel like with his campaign, this is
I know,
is
he's
the
done
norm.
it before.
It's the norm. It's time and time again. Every time he gets online, they have some sort of like weird technical error, a glitch. Joe Biden standing up there going, Are we on? All right, do I start talking now? Are we ready? So I should go. It's every time he gets on.
Not only that, but half the time he doesn't even know where he is. The other day he was at some community center and he came out and he said, "Welcome to the Kingswood Community Center." No, wait, that's the center I was at.
I used to work at.
I used to work at when I was 20. I'm sorry.
That was a joke.
That was a joke. It was nowhere near a joke. He wasn't kidding. He just realized, wait, I'm not at the Kingswood Community Center right now. I just thought I was for a second.
Which, good for him that he realized it, I guess.
Good for him, but that's what dementia does. My dad had dementia in the end.
Yeah.
And he would sometimes in his mind be back taking care of the cows when he was a kid.
That's what every relative I've had that's had that, and there's been a few, they will bring up moments from much earlier in their life out of context in the moment they're in now. That one was, the Zoom thing's funny. That one was legitimately scary.
It was scary. It really was, because it reminded me of my dad when he was like that, and it's heartbreaking.
And it also, it shows that he at least had the wherewithal to recognize that he needed to say that was a joke.
Yeah. That's the last step. He's still, which is important. It's better than,
I think he's been counseled that way, don't you? I mean, they've got to,
do you think
Joe, when you lose track of something, just say, etc., or and so on.
I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop talking now.
Too long. It's there's we the people, etc.
Yeah.
He'll do that kind of stuff.
I go back and forth with whether I'm like I feel bad for his staff or if I think they're totally incompetent. It's like I feel bad because he goes out there and he just embarrasses himself and probably makes their life a living hell if you're on his staff. But the other part is like, why aren't you taking a step to produce these a little bit better? I don't know. Record the question and have them ask it on put a full screen up of the text of the question that's coming while they're reading it so it doesn't feel. Record the thing and edit it together so it's smooth.
Unless you don't want him elected.
Yeah, right.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
I don't know. Maybe they're just protecting America by not doing that.
Or he's just he's just like, I don't need to do that. Just let it go. We'll do it live. Like he might just be that guy where he thinks he can pull it off and he can't. I don't know, but it's bad.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Politico oopsie that happened earlier this week where they published a piece that named Kamala as the vice president pick with a quote that none of that had happened?
Yeah.
It said it was happening it had happened August 1st.
August 1st, yeah. Look, we're in the internet business. We put stories on the internet. That occasionally does happen. Like if you're a news organization, you probably have a write-up for every single one of these candidates and then being named.
For sure.
You have it already and you're supposed to press send or post when it happens. And sometimes you post the wrong one. That being said, it does feel like it was worded like it was an embargo type of thing.
They had quotes.
Yeah,
yes, that's what, and it was not an old quote.
Right. It's a brand new quote.
Yeah.
Now, the only way you would have quotes in advance is if you're working with a campaign and they're telling you what they're going to say at the time.
Right.
So if you're working already between Politico and Biden, then that's kind of weird.
Possible. It could be that they had placeholder quotes. Like you, a lot of times would put that there, but you wouldn't normally. You'd put like placeholder quote. And,
Yeah. Why would you make up something?
Unless,
that hadn't been said?
It's hard to understand how that would happen.
Yeah.
But again, Kamala's a weird pick, man. It's a weird pick. And I tell you, if this thing starts going bad, she will be stabbing you in the back in the media in seconds.
Absolutely.
It's a terrible idea for Joe Biden.
Absolutely. All right, back in a minute.
That's her. Yeah. She will be ripping you further. Yeah.
All right, yesterday's poll. This was an interesting one. If you were forced to listen to one of the following, which would it be? The options were Michelle Obama's podcast, The View, or Nails on a Chalkboard, which, by the way, won wholeheartedly. 93.7% said Nails on a Chalkboard. I'm just kind of disappointed that it wasn't 100. I thought for sure that it would be 100, but I'm sure it wasn't this audience. I'm sure it got retweeted and other people read it. Michelle Obama's podcast, 3.6%, and The View at 2.7%.
You've really calmed down over the years here. You used to just yell at the audience when they didn't give you 100%. Now you're like, oh, well, I'm sure it's been retweeted.
Well, I'm just so dejected all the time by not getting my favorable results that I have to do that to calm myself.
It's good to see.
Yeah,
it's
thanks.
Good to see.
I've grown as a person.
The brilliant interview she did on our podcast the other day.
No.
Somehow she landed the former president of the United States.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great get.
Barack Hussein Obama.
I had my wife on the show the other day, so I'm not any better. Lisa Page, welcome to the show.
Today's poll, who has done the most harm to America? Your options are Barack Obama, the Clintons, Joe Biden, or Donald Trump.
Barack
Obama, the Clintons, so both of them as one.
Wow, that's a double.
Yeah, Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
I think I got to go with the Clintons here. You're getting double trouble. Get choice for one, plus all the kids that apparently were at an island, and I don't even want to talk about that. So I'm going to go with the Clintons.
What do you think, Pat?
I'm going to go Obamas.
Obamas.
Oh, we got both Obamas there? Or was
Barack Obama.
Oh, Barack Obama.
Only one Obama. You
the
lose
fundamental transformation of America is on.
It's
on.
That's fair. All right, let us know what you think. You can go to The Blaze's Twitter, @TheBlaze.